Hey, in this video, I'm going to walk you through how we helped a seven-figure distillery in North Carolina be able to improve their tax burden by recognizing some huge over expenditures or over reporting on income side of things, and how we're going to be able to set them up to be able to continue to scale profitably so they can continue to grow their distillery and bar business. Let's get into this case study. Hey, welcome back to another series of our case studies. This particular client is a seven-figure distillery and bar in North Carolina. We're going to talk through the challenges they were facing before they came to see us here at CEO Finance Academy. What we were able to do as they were one of our Academy clients, we were sat down, we did this with them to help them understand their profit margins, get in, improve profitability. So just a little bit of breakdown on the client. They're a distillery and cocktail bar in North Carolina. So they do a mix of hospitality and beverage production. They have an on-site bar, they do bottle sales, and they do wholesale distribution as well. Revenue size, they're seven figures, so they're, we did some calculations around 1.1 to 1.5 annually. We'll get into that's when they came to us, and we'll talk through exactly kind of how we figured out what their true revenue size is. So the team, it's a mix of bartenders, production staff, and then they obviously have the management as well. So what were some of the challenges they were facing when they first arrived to us as a client? First one was one of the biggest things that we saw was inaccurate revenue reporting. So tips and sales tax were being recorded as income. So it's a huge one. So if you're noticing that tips and sales tax, obviously check your state, but if they're being reported as income, that is going to grossly overestimate your actual income being produced. So as we mentioned here, this overstated top line revenue and actually skewed margins big time, which is going to be a big deal as we look at how do we grow and sustain over the next 12 months if we don't know our margins. So to dive into that, they didn't have true gross margin visibility. So all the sales of their different food and beverages, so cocktails, food, bottles, wholesale, were all lumped together into one sort of just income stream. And there's no breakdown per income stream of each of those, right? So cocktails, if you run a bar or you're in the restaurant industry, liquor, for example, has cocktails tend to have a much higher margin than, say, something like food. And so if it's being lumped in, you don't really know exactly how much more that the liquor side is doing compared to food if it's all lumped together. So we couldn't see which revenue streams were actually profitable. And then lastly, they had no forecasting or growth model in place. So the projections were wildly off, previously showing unrealistic growth rates based off of the not having accurate income, right, and margins due to a couple of things that we've mentioned above. So all things being lumped together, and then also tips and sales taxes being reported as income, which is going to inflate what their overall income was. So they didn't have a tool to visualize seasonality or plan for investment and debt payoff as well. So what did we do? So all of our clients, they come through, the first thing we do is we do an accounting assessment where we're actually going to go in, look at how are they organizing and managing their books and being able to have the data presented to them for them to be able to see and make decisions. So we did an accounting cleanup. So we removed the tips and sales tax from revenue and we reclassified them as liabilities. So doing this, we were able to clean up the P&L to be able to reflect the true income and COGS. So what did that allow us to do? Well, we were able to get margin segmentation. So we were able to split revenue into core categories: bar sales, food sales, retail bottles, and wholesale spirits. So we can even get even more granular, like when we're doing with fractional CFO clients, we'll even get even granular into individual types of liquor and things like that, or what are the margins on those. In this case, we need to at least start with some categorization. And so some categorizing, so moving things into, hey, what are the sales from the bar, what are food sales, what are retail bottle sales, and what are wholesale spirit sales. And then we match each with corresponding costs of goods for true margin tracking in those categories. So we're able to see which categories were actually more profitable than the others. And then we were able to put together a cash flow and forecasting model. So we built a 12-month projection tool tied to historical seasonality. So we were able to actually take their revenue over the last several years and create a model based on, hey, what does that look like in terms of the trends that happen seasonally, year over year. And so we were able to look at a model, we were able to look at this and model a realistic 10 to 20% growth rate based on last year's performance, which allowed them to see, okay, maybe it's not the 100% growth rate we wanted, but it's realistic and it's something that actually is going to allow us to stay profitable. And then the last one of the last core things that we really focused on was pricing and product optimization. So we analyzed their cocktail sales and replaced underperforming drinks with proven higher margin options. And so we were able to help them look at, hey, how do you do that on, for example, highlighting those in the menu, creating specials around those to highlight those higher margin options. And we adjusted the menu pricing ahead of peak tourist season. So looking at, hey, we have an opportunity in those peak demand times to actually adjust prices to be able to optimize and capitalize on those high volume times. And the last thing was debt and cash management. So we were able to reconcile all bank accounts and credit lines, and we created a disciplined pay down plan to reduce liabilities while maintaining healthy operating cash. So was it worth it for them, right? And so this is a sort of like an estimated return on investment for them going through the academy. One of the biggest things is as we were going through that accounting assessment, we saw that there was over $300,000 of previously overstated revenue due to misclassified tips and taxes. So what does that mean? How does that affect someone? Well, if you think about it, you're taxed on your profit, and if you are reporting $300,000 more of income and your expenses stay the same, you're increasing your margin by whatever that $300,000 will be compared to your expenses. And so, typically you're going to owe anywhere from 10 to 30% of that on taxes, right? And so if we look at what's 10 to 30% of 300,000, you're looking at anywhere from $30,000 to $90,000 of having to overpay on taxes. And so that's a huge thing. We were able to see that and hey, and if we hadn't been able to adjust that, that was probably going to continue year over year until someone finally caught it. And so this is why sometimes we work with owners who say, man, I just got hit with a huge tax bill I wasn't prepared for. And then we can go in and do something like this and go, oh, hey, actually, you had misreported on your books. And then we can actually either go have them talk with their CPA, file an amended return, or prepare for this upcoming year and say, hey, you're not going to have to owe as much in taxes because we're going to be able to say, hey, this wasn't actually the revenue that's going to be classified for taxes in this case. So, and then we were able to look at the true revenue clarified around 1.1. So we were able to actually then with that be able to determine what's our actual margin. And then the menu and pricing changes that we were able to change to help them talk through and change. It's probably going to increase their margins around 4 to 6%, adding around 40 to 60 net profit per year, which is going to be huge for them. And the new forecasting model projects sustainable 20% annual growth supported by cash flow stability and better cost tracking. So those are kind of the things for us in our academies. Our academies can run anywhere from, on the low end, like $3,000 up to, in the $15,000 range. And so whichever program obviously is incredibly worth it for them. Absolutely doing amazing. And here's what we're going to continue to work on with them. So we continue to refine product line margin analysis. So getting deeper into the bar versus wholesale side of things. We're going to track real-time gross margins through updated dashboard. And we're going to use a 12-month forecast to plan debt paydown and reinvestment strategy. And lastly, we're going to begin exploring sort of expansion in new wholesale channels once cash position strengthens. So this is our case study here of a seven-figure distillery and bar in North Carolina. And obviously huge findings here that have been able to really allow them to feel much more in control and on top of their finances, improve their profitability. Biggest thing here is going to reduce their tax burden significantly due to some of the findings that we were able to come away with, and set them up to be able to scale more profitably, especially during peak season. So hope you enjoyed this one. If you're interested in more case studies, click around on the YouTube channel and you'll see a lot more, and we'll catch you on the next video.